Perfect. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. So, talking about us, Havisham Consulting, we are an analytics firm that works in the area of digital transformation, data analytics, data visualization, business intelligence, process automation, and workflow architecture. The team consists of the founder, Mr. Havish Madhupati. I work with him in the capacity of a full-time consultant in the area of analytics and data strategy. And we have a few independent consultants associated with us in different areas such as communication, analytics, and solutions architecture. The key clients that we work with across, as you can see, there's no specific pattern here. We work across sectors and across functions among these clients as well. Right now, we are actively engaged in projects with Sterlite Power, Renew, Landmark, and Diageo and NABARD. These are a few recommendations that we've received over the years for the work that we've done, both in training and in consulting. The work that we've done has also been featured in different business magazines, such as Analytics Insight, Business World, Economic Times, ET Brand Equity specifically, and Speakin. What we do can essentially be categorized into 6 buckets. So we help our clients improve their existing business models and by improving and writing more efficient formulas. We create custom, complex, and reusable formulas in using Excel's worksheet formulas, Power Queries, M-Code, Power Pivots, DAX, or dynamic arrays and VBA. We also work on creating business dashboards using Power BI and Tableau. We also help our clients understand and build relationships between the variety of data sets that they have, because as we all know, data does not come from a single source. And due to the unavailability of a single source of truth, it becomes very difficult to manage the data sources. So the screenshot that you see is from a data model that is created in Power BI. Then we also create custom user forms designed in Excel using VBA, that one of our flagship projects, which is a talent tracker performance management tool that is created using VBA in Excel. And we also create workflow architecture, document business process, and SOPs, right? That's the introduction that I want to give. And now jumping directly to the topic at hand for today. So enhancing data management in Excel, streamline your workflow and boost your productivity with the go-to column add-in. So the add-in that we've created, we've named it go-to column. And in a few slides, we'll see what it can do. But before that, so in the Google form, we had asked all of you, how do you currently navigate large data sets in Excel? So a lot of you had said that, manual scrolling and searching, using built-in filter options, creating and using pivot tables, right? And this is what typically all the users that work with Excel across the globe, this is how they typically work with Excel. So this was a good insight for us, a good starting point, because henceforth in the upcoming slides, what I show you, you will be able to see how the problems of manual scrolling, manual sorting can get sorted with the add-in that we have created. Now, first, let's understand the process. If a user has to work on Excel, manage a large data set, analyze it, even before analyze, do some basic data cleaning, understand what the data is about. What is the process that the user follows? So typically, the process that the user would follow is that you get data from various sources. Either the data is collected manually, data comes in from some internal system that you have created, or the data comes in from ERPs, like your SAP, Salesforce, or Oracle. Once the data comes in from these variety of data sources, you would typically want this data in Excel, right? Some today clients would want the data directly loading it into Power BI, Tableau, or any other BI tool as well. But generally, across clients, what we've seen and across teams, the first and foremost tool that people rely on is Excel, right? So you import the data into spreadsheets. Another way that people collect data is using manual data entry and verification, which still happens at a lot of clients. So for example, in logistics specifically, if a company wants to update, so for example, if a company wants to update their serviceable PIN code list, the data is collected from the ground up. So the regional operations team or the zonal operations team will pass on the PIN code, literally fill in an Excel file and pass it on to their managers, who will then consolidate it at a corporate level for all the 4 zones or all the 4 regions in the country, right? Then you would want to customize and organize the columns before you go ahead with data analysis and reporting to then generate reports and insights. Now, with this process specifically, the challenge is sometimes if the data is coming in manually, so manual data entry and import is going to be a challenge. If the data set is quite large, as in the number of columns are quite large, column navigation becomes a challenge because there is no easy way to navigate columns in Excel, right? Data analysis bottlenecks. So when there is a lot of manual process involved. So for example, if I have data set for my sales for the last 3 months, and I want to just look at average sales, or I want to look at the max sales in a specific time period, I would have to write a formula for which my data has to be in the correct order and the correct structure, right? Limited data scalability is one, wherein, for example, if you are sharing a file with multiple people to get the data filled, multiple people working on a single Excel file, as we all know, is going to cause a lot of issues. There can be unintentional data deletion by people, right? And a lot of repetitive tasks such as, manual sorting and organizing are also done by everyone across. Now, let's talk about and let's focus on Excel, because that is the tool that we're focusing on for today, right? What is the problem? So let us understand what is the problem when we work with large data sets Excel. The first one, the foremost is, like I said, manual data entry and validation. Users spend a significant time manually entering and verifying data, which can often lead to errors and inconsistency. One of the biggest challenges that clients also share with us is that the data that they have collected is what they wanted to collect, but the quality of the data is not at par with which they would want to proceed with the analysis, right? So for example, a financial analyst manually enters monthly expense data into Excel. A single typo in a large data set could lead to significant discrepancies in the quarterly financial report, right? And in Excel, the biggest challenge is if you make an error, it is very difficult for you to go back and identify where that error happened, because there is no version control like you would have in Google Sheets, where you can go back to a previous version of Excel. So it becomes very difficult to pinpoint the error or the redundancy where it has exactly happened. Similarly, if you look at the tedious data management as a challenge. So users manually hide and rearrange columns, which is repetitive, inefficient, specifically when you have to create frequent reports. So you have your weekly sales reports, quarterly sales reports, or monthly sales reports. So for example, an operations manager frequently updates inventory reports. Now, each time they have to, when presenting the data, they might have to manually hide or show columns, and that will take a lot of time. Manually doing it one by one is going to take a lot of time. Then what is the solution that we have proposed? Now, I will show you one slide and then I will directly jump to the demonstration. So the solution that we've proposed is creating an add-in. So we've created an add-in that runs inside Excel. The add-in is created using TypeScript. And what the add-in allows you to do is 6 things. Firstly, when you run the add-in on an Excel file, it will create a drop-down of all the sheets that are there in the Excel file. Why is this important? Because without having to go to different sheets, when I choose a sheet, I can see all the columns in that specific sheet. I can see all the columns in that specific sheet, right? The add-in also allows me to search using a wild character search, again, which is not very feasible directly in Excel, generating a list of columns that match the wild character search or the keywords that I have searched for. Then I can manually, it's in a click of a button, I can sort my columns in an ascending or in a descending order, while also retaining the original order of my columns. Then I can lock the entire sheet. Right now, we're also working on the functionality to lock specific columns. But since this is version 1, we've added the ability to lock a specific sheet. Then you have drop-down menu for all the rows, allowing the user to switch between multiple columns as well. And one of the most important things that you would have to do manually in Excel is showing the column profile. Simple things such as what is the total count, how many errors are there in the data set, how many cells are empty, what is the number of distinct and unique values, what is the minimum, maximum, and average in terms of a number column, right? Now, directly, I would like to jump into the add-in. So I've already loaded the add-in, and I would like to open a simple data set that I have. So this data set, I have 5 sheets with me that I can see on the screen. So I have a store sheet, I have a product sheet, I have a customer sheet, I have an exchange rate sheet, and I have a sales data sheet, which is the transactional sales data, right? I've got around 62,000 rows in the transactional sales data sheet. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to, on the right hand side, you can see right top corner that the add-in is already installed in my system. I'm going to click on go to column. And once I do that, once the add-in loads, right now it shows me the columns for the first sheet, right? Now, very seamlessly, without having to move between sheets. So if I'm on the first sheet, it shows me the 4 columns on the first sheet, right? Right now, a scroll bar is not appearing because the number of columns are limited. If there are a larger number of columns, the scroll bar will also appear. When I click on a column, it automatically selects that column. When I click on a column on the same sheet, it automatically selects that column. I can very simply click on the sort functionality as well to sort my columns in the descending order. Or if I want to retain the original order of the columns, I can click reset to default and that would apply. Similarly, while remaining on the first sheet, especially if let's say I want to apply a VLOOKUP, right? So basis the store key, if I want to do a SUMIF maybe, or I want to do a VLOOKUP to get the number of customers or the total sales from the sales sheet, I would have to manually, in a VLOOKUP, I would have to manually go to the sales sheet, right? You would still have to do that, but before you apply the VLOOKUP, you can simply come, or while you're on the store sheet, without having to go to the sales sheet, I can click on the drop down, I can choose the sales sheet, and it shows me all the columns of the sales sheet. Now you will also observe I am on the stores sheet. I'm looking at the columns from the sales sheet. We've also added the column head, column sequence number. So A1A, column A, which is column index number 1, B, column index number 2. So when you're doing a VLOOKUP, typically what we do is we come back, count the number of columns, apply a sequence, a series of numbers, and then identify which column is it that we want to supply as a column index number. Here, you can do that in a single view. Here, you can do that in a single view as well. Now, if I wanted to hide a column in a different sheet, or let's say I want to jump to the sales sheet now, I can just double click on a column. I can directly double click on a column, and you can see that it will bring me to the sales sheet while selecting the column, while keeping the column selected, right? Similarly, if I move to some other sheet, let's say customers, right? And I click on, let's say, I want to click on state maybe, right? And it brings me to the customer sheet. Now, if I also want to hide a column, typically what we do is we right click and we hide the column. But let's say on a larger number of columns, even on a smaller data set, when I right click and I hide, right? Visually, I am able to see that because here I will see that there is some column that is hidden. Visually, I'll be able to identify, but it becomes very difficult. It becomes very tedious. What I can do is I can simply choose a column. So for example, if I want to hide the state code column, I can choose that and I can click on the hide column button and it hides the column. That is great. But it also in the list of columns changes the color and visually you're also able to identify which column has been hidden. Right now, the multi-select property is not been added. We've kept that for version 2. So right now you can only click on one column and hide it. In version 2, we will be adding the multi-select property. So I would be able to select multiple columns and hide and unhide them. Similarly, if I click on the column, I'll be able to unhide it in a single click. Now, coming to the sales sheet, I also want to show you the column profile feature. So once I come to the sales sheet and let's say I come to the quantity column, right? I come to the quantity column, right? Now in the sales sheet, like I told you, I have 62,885 rows. If I want to look at the minimum, maximum, average quantity, all of these are going to give, I will have to write the formula, right? I'll have to write min, max, or average, or I create a pivot table and do it. What we've done is we've added a show column profile, which is not available directly in Excel. So what I can do is I can click on show column profile, and then I can go ahead and choose my quantity column. And when I do that, at the bottom, you will see that it creates a column profile dialog box in which I'm able to see some basic arithmetic calculations. So I can see the total count. So basically what you would have done using a count A, then it shows me if there are any errors in the data set. Right now, there are none, hence it is showing 0. It shows me if there are any empty values. It shows me the number of distinct values, unique values, minimum, maximum, average, and the sum. Now, you can also select all the columns and have that visible here as well. But then again, you would have to go back, select multiple columns, and then you would be able to see this. Before I move to a larger data set, which is an HR data set, does anyone have any questions? Or else I'll move to a larger data set and demonstrate the sorting feature one time. I'll just check the chat as well. Sure, I'll let Tejansh present the process behind the code as well. So I'll just jump back to the PowerPoint. Tejansh, if you want to run everyone through how you've gone ahead and build this functionality.
Sure, sir. I'm audible first.
Yes, you're audible.
So like basically when I was assigned this task, so I started by like listing all the features that we want to implement in an add, like particularly which are not present in Excel and like we use them daily. But like
Right.
there are many complexities in like using those, making formulas and some stuff like that. So like let's say I want to create a certain feature. So I'll list down all the things, like all the requirements that I want to add into this add. Basically, this as Tala said, this add-in is created using TypeScript. So TypeScript use JavaScript APIs, and with that API, I can fetch the data from the Excel, then I can store temporarily in my TypeScript storage, and I can use that to manipulate the data. Let's say
Un-
we have a number of columns in Excel. So TypeScript, what TypeScript does that, it fetches the data from the Excel, stores it in an array, and in that array, we can either display it or we can either like alter it. Like the height functionality, we can like either manipulate it using some certain, I'll say, features that like types provide us. So like starting by integrating from the very first time, just implement the search functionality, then the drop down, then the sorting, slowly adding onto each other to build this whole add-on.
Perfect. So you first identified what are the main issues or what is the workflow of a user in Excel, and only then were you able to list down the features that you would want to add inside the add-in. Great. So moving on to a larger data set that I have. So I'll just open this. So I have around 36 columns in this data set. I have around 36 columns in the data set, right? Tejash, you just open the code in the meanwhile, while I'll just demonstrate this example. Now I'll just turn on my add-in again. And again, now in the earlier example, we had the number of columns were quite small. Now here you would be able to understand the intensity of what the add-in can do for you, right? I just have one sheet right now. So when I click on the sheet dropdown, I'll only see one sheet, but the number of columns are quite large. Now, just navigating between the columns is also quite an hassle, right? Or what I would have to do if I wanted to sort a specific column is in Excel, column sorting, you sort the values in the column by default. But if you want to sort left to right, as in change the order of the columns, you have to add a helper row. So what you would have to do is you would have to add a helper row first, right? The helper row would essentially have a sequence of values. So you would have to write a function like sequence, wherein you get a list of all the numbers, right, that are there in the columns. And just a second, right? And once you have all the numbers, then you can go ahead and come to home. I'll just hide the floating ribbon. Perfect. You would come to data, right? And then you would go to the sort option, right? And in options, what I would want to do is I would want to sort left to right. I would want to sort left to right. Then I would choose the row that I wanted to sort by. I would choose the row that I want to sort by. And right now it will not, it's in the correct sequence. Hence, I would have to change the numbering and do this sorting. Multiple levels, multiple steps are involved, right? Let me just delete the top rows. Perfect. Now, in the example that I'll just show, so what we've done is if I want to sort the data in a descending order, I just click on the button and it sorts the data in a descending order for me. It sorts the data in a descending order for me. If I do that one more time, it'll sort the columns one more time. And if I want to retain the original order, many of the times when your data is coming in from an ERP or a system, you would want to always retain the original order of the columns. And hence we've added the natural order or reset to default order feature as well, on which if I click, it brings the original order of the columns back, right? Now I'll hand it over to Tejansh, who will just run us through the code, and then we'll take any questions that you guys have for us.
Sure.
Yeah, you can present your screen.
So like, can you name the participants initially?
One second, I'll just make you co-host, and you should be able to present your screen now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is my code visible right
Yes, it's visible.
here? Just a second. So yeah. So this is the basic file folder structure for the add-in that we've created. This is the task pin code, like in which I'll say we can change the how the add-in looks, beautify it using the CSS feature, or I can like we can add the functionality. Like this is the backbone of how this add-in actually works. So starting with like the office dot like this office feature, like boiling it down to simpler words, JavaScript uses this office functionality of the Excel. Excel provides its own endpoints by which we can manipulate the Excel data, or we can like fetch the data from it. So it takes the data, this TypeScript code takes the data from the Excel using this feature, element by element. Like for the search box, we have a different element, the sort button for the sheet drop down, and the code for each of that is like written separately. So what we did was we created separate function for each of the feature that we want to implement. Let's say we want to implement this sheet functionality or drop down for the sheets. So what this code does that it fetches the data from the Excel only, as I told earlier, and it tells the TypeScript that these are the sheets that I have. So what TypeScript does that it takes the sheet and it creates an element, like it creates a drop down for it, and it sends the data back to the HTML code that is there. And this HTML code, we have this drop down container. This drop down container takes the data from the TypeScript code and display it on the add-in. Okay. In the similar way, we have this load sheet functionality, load columns functionality. I'll show you one of the main functionality, uh, the column profile that we have created. So yeah, so this is the function for the column profile entirely. So it has separate variables to show the error count, unique count, or numeric values, everything. So Excel, like we are not sure about, but the data that the user had, like he can has about like 50,000 rows or like 10 or 20 rows. So to make it optimized with the large data set, so we use the map feature, like the map data set, like the map array, basically optimizing the code to the faster extent. So basically, like it reads the data row by row, it stores an array, and then manipulates it, stores into a variable, and then pushes it back to the HTML code. And HTML code, like beautifully, it displays it all in a single box, like this div box. It displays all in a single box. So like that's how we create this add-in, like separating it out in function by function, and then calling it back to the HTML code, and then Excel fetching its data with TypeScript in this around.
Perfect. Thanks, Srijansh, for giving us a quick look at the code as well, right? Anyone, any questions that you would, or any feedback that you have on what you've just seen in terms of the add-in, right? Is go to columns add-in only specific to Office 365? Oh no, this is not an add-in that is there in the Office store. So this is something that we've, I'm not sure if I reiterated that correctly. We have created this from scratch. Tejansh has worked on the add-in, and Havish sir and Tejansh have worked on the add-in and created this. Tejansh has done the entire coding by himself and created this from scratch. This is not available right now. Eventually, once we have all the features, we will launch it on the Excel add-in store, or we would install it on our clients' systems depending on the requirement, right? Because a lot of clients have already told us, we've shown them this, and they've already shown the requirement or the need for this. So we'll be installing it on different systems. Once, I think, Tejansh, by when can we complete the version 1 so that maybe we can share the XML file with the people who are there on the call?
Sure, so like version one require like a day or two minor like changes and all, and then we'll deploy it on the net and everyone can use it.
Exactly. So what we can do is maybe by next week, we can give you guys access, exclusive access to the add-in. You guys can test and share your feedback with us, right? Any other questions, anyone? Or I'll just,
Yeah, hi.
yeah.
Shivam this
Hi.
side. I had a query.
Great.
Is there a functionality as of now that we can select multiple columns? We can select columns in multiple sheets together at the same time, or will that come in a later version?
I do not think that will come in a later version as well, because in Excel also by default, if you look how Excel operates, so
Yeah.
if I want to select a column here in store sheet, even if I can press Control and select a column in the same sheet, right? But if I
Okay.
select a column here and I come and select a column here, technically
That
these
goes
columns in those
unselected.
individual
Okay.
sheets. So
Yeah,
even
yeah,
if I'm
understood.
able to, maybe Tejansh, can you answer that? Can we display data from two separate columns on the panel?
So like basically Excel doesn't like itself provides its own endpoints. Like we look into the APIs, like if Excel provides it by its own, then we can use the functionality and add it to an app, add it independently.
Shivam, if we can, if I can ask you,
I
what?
yeah, I'll just provide a use case for
Yes,
this. Like,
exactly.
how would that be beneficial?
Yeah.
Suppose we have the sales data a date column in two separate sheets.
Right.
And as you know, if we are getting data from the ground up, they
Right.
will be entering data in their own way. Somebody will be
Right.
mentioning 12th March, somebody will be mentioning 12/3/2024. So if two different sheets have date columns, and
Right.
if we wanted to change the data type for both of those columns at the same time, so if we could select those columns on different sheets at the same time, then control
Okay.
one, and then we can change the format for them.
Understood.
Similarly, that could
Understood.
work for revenue, that could work for sales, that could work for percentages, numbers, rates, or
Understood.
multiple scenarios.
Yeah, that's a very interesting use case. So I think Sir has said that in theory, I mean, with the code, we should be able to do it. But Tejansh will look at Tejansh, just make a note of this. And I think it's a very interesting use case, specifically with dates, the example that Shivam mentioned, that because dates typically are one of those data types or data sets
Yeah,
that
which
are
everybody
always
prefers their
messed
own
up.
way
Yeah,
for.
exactly. And we have different formats. So I think that is a very interesting use case. Is it compatible with 2013? Yes. If you install the add-in on your system, Ganeshji, it should work in 2013 as well. Tejansh, is there a version requirement or is that not a requirement for installing the
No,
add-in?
like I don't think so. There will be any version like backward compatibility won't be
Yeah,
an issue.
2013 is still a relatively like a recent one. So you should be able to work on that as well, Ganeshji. Right.
And just another query, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah,
This
no problem.
is
You can ask as many as you want.
the add-on is named as go to column.
Yeah.
Any future plans to make this compatible with rows as well? It will just be for particular columns itself. Because making it compatible with rows will require a lot of work, because each row would have individual data anyways. But
So we
I
can
would,
have.
yeah.
Sorry, please complete.
Yeah, not we don't need to select multiple rows from multiple sheets. Just selecting a set of rows in a particular sheet itself, like row 1 to 10. We can just
Understood.
enter
Understood.
many rows 1 to
Yeah,
10, then row 20 to 30, and so
in
forth and so forth.
in theory, we can display the row numbers like for example, right now, how you see the column numbers. So you see A,
Yeah.
which is column number 1, then you see country, which is B2. You would be able to do that as well. So with rows also, I don't think that will be an issue.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tejan has just said that on different sheets, you can implement multi-select. So what Shivam, what you asked is doable. So maybe that'll be in a version 2 or version 3 that we will add multi-select columns in different sheets also.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for the questions. Anyone else, any questions? I'm sure you're able to see the use case for this, especially when working with large data sets, especially the questions that, Shivam has asked. They also, might be giving you some idea or some context as to why and how the add-in can be useful or where it can be used, right? Just to give you a very quick run through. Now, why would you want to use an add-in, right? So for example, like Nauman asked that is this already in Excel? He can't find it. So no, this is completely customized. We've developed this after a lot of thought because we work with a lot of clients and across variety of data sets. So we have data sets across finance, HR, supply chain, marketing. And every time the biggest challenge is the data set is quite large and just navigating the data set is quite difficult, right? The analysis and everything else comes later. First is just understanding what the data set has in store for me, right? For example, if I ask anyone in a column, what are the unique values, right? So right now we're just displaying the count. In version 2, we will also have the ability to just display the unique values or the distinct values from a column, for which right now in the newer versions, you have the unique function, but in the older versions, it's quite complex and you would have to use a traditional array formula to do it, right? So one of the biggest advantages is quick column navigation. Like I just showed you, jumping between multiple columns and maybe later on between rows or selecting multiple columns or selecting different rows becomes much easier. You end up saving a lot of time eventually in this specific process. Then enhanced column management, hiding and locking and sorting columns becomes much more easy. Right now we have the lock sheet feature, but later on we'll also implement locking specific columns. That will be much more helpful when you want to. And then later on we can add password protection. So right now we've just set the stage for it. And then we keep on adding more and more features depending on the feedback that we get and depending on the experience that we have with our clients' data sets, right? Especially locking as a feature in Excel is a little confusing because in Excel, all the cells are locked by default, but you have to go and click on the protect sheet button. So for example, if I just open an Excel file and show you guys. So if I press Control 1, and I go to protection. Right now, I've not locked anything, but by default, Excel, all the cells are locked. So locking cells or hiding formulas has no effect until you protect the sheet, which is in the review tab in the protect group and the protect sheet button. So what I would have to do is, since by default everything is locked, I would have to come to review and then click on the protect sheet button to protect the entire sheet. This is a little confusing for users to understand and wrap their heads around. Similarly, protecting ranges, which is a range of cells, either an entire column or an entire row, is also a little intimidating to do in Excel, and the add-in helps solve that specific problem. Right? Let me just go full screen one more time. Right. And then the next one is show column profile. Like I said, there is no direct feature that allows you to do this. This is there in Power Query, but again, not a lot of users are using Power Query. In Excel, there is no feature that directly shows you basic information about the column, number of errors that are there in the column, unique values, distinct values. In the number column, what is the minimum, maximum, average, or sum? Similarly, in the date column, what is the minimum date and the maximum date? You either have to go and apply a filter, or you sort your data in an ascending and descending order to get the correct result or the correct output, right? You would have to write manual formulas to count the sum, average, and count, but the add-in allows you to do it with a single click. Similarly, moving towards the very end, what are the use cases, right? So like Shivam mentioned, we have some very practical use cases that you can see across functions as well, specifically in finance. So the challenge can be you have a lot of manual data entry and validation and verification. In that case, the add-in will be helpful in terms of reducing errors and the time spent. Then in sales, if you have a larger data set, typically in sales, you have a larger data set, you have data for last 3 years in a single file, multiple quarters, multiple products, business units, and the data gets quite large and quite heavy. So navigating between columns becomes quite easy. Similarly, across marketing, HR, customer service, operations, we can find use case for this add-in across different types of data sets, across varying business functions as well, right? That brings me to the end of the session, right? Happy to take any questions, any feedback, or any input that you guys have that you would want to add as a feature in the add-in, and we would be happy to incorporate that as well. And the floor is open to everyone.
Sorry, I just thought of another, like, I don't know, use case or a scenario which could be useful. Suppose as of now, we have the functionality to select duplicates or like unique values in the particular column.
Display.
And in the add-on.
Achha. No, it will display the count of distinct or unique values.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then can we also have the functionality to find out, like, suppose there are 5,000 rows in a particular column,
right?
Or rows of numbers, 5,000 rows
Right.
of numbers in a particular column, and
Right.
out of those 5,000, suppose 26 or 27 are in a text format instead of
Right.
number format.
Right.
So when you apply the formula to other columns, they will return an error.
Correct.
So if there can be a functionality, like if you select a column and then you can just, I don't know, there might be a drop down or a radio button or something like that, key find out the rows, find out the particular numbers which are not in the ideal format. Like it's a number form, if it's a number column,
stored as text.
If it's a numbers column, but there are like multiple entries stored as text, they might be like highlighted, or there might be a cell of a different color or something like that.
Doable. So it will first give you the count. Right now, it can only give you a count, but obviously later on, Tejan, just make a note of this. We can add the functionality to select those specific columns and then manually add a color or something to highlight them.
Not even select, if just a color can be added, then we can just select the particular color and change the text to number or something.
Doable.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. That's a very great insight. Thank you. Great. Anyone else? Ganeshji, Nauman, any questions? Can you give us a short walkthrough your ChatGPT add-in as well? Oh no, that's not my add-in. That's already there on the Excel store. That's a default add-in that is already available. I'm not even sure if it's by OpenAI or some other company, but it is exactly how you interact with ChatGPT. No, it's not by OpenAI. It's by some other company. They just called it. It's called GPT for Excel. It's not created by us. You can find it on the Excel add-in store. If you just search GPT for Excel, you'll be able to install it for free. Yeah, you're welcome, Norman. Great. Anyone else?
Hi.
Hi, Ganeshji.
Hi. In finance, like means uh, we can stress for the reconciliation. We
Right,
can stress the formula. It's like how it's precedent and that feature is Excel is having. Basically,
correct,
no one is using or
correct,
auditors are basically using those features.
correct,
So that kind of thing, if it's like for if you're having the clients from finance side, and
right,
if you build in uh, that thing in your add-in, then you
right.
can showcase that is a one kind of KPI of your add-in. That can be a possibility of this add in terms of for
Yes. So,
finance.
so what Ganesh ji has mentioned just now is, you have the formulas tab in Excel, right? And inside that you have the ability to firstly trace precedent and dependence, how multiple cells are linked to each other and how the formula is impacting multiple calculations. So he's indicating that we can add this as a functionality inside our add-in as well. Great input, Ganeshi. We will consider that for version 2 or version 3. Sir,
Yes,
yeah,
I will think means like right now I will think and I will put down on mail to you
done, done,
what
done.
can be practical problems and you can develop this thing and your clients will get benefit out of it. Yes,
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Thank you very much, Ganeshi. Havi sir,
thank you.
would you be able to present your screen? I don't have the latest one installed. I have the older one installed in my system. I have table of contents and center across selection. And just stop sharing.
Tala, did you get a chance to show our add-in to everyone, the Habisham
No,
Consulting?
no, I don't have the latest one installed. I have the older one.
That's
I
okay.
have
You show the older one. That's all right.
1 second. I'll do it. So we also create a lot of add-ins of our own, right? So for example, we create a custom tab, and in that, for example, if you wanted to create a table of contents, these add-ins are the ones that I'm showing you right now are created using VBA, right? So for example, when you typically do a merge and center, what happens is, let's say for some reason I merge these two columns, Alt H MC, right? Now when I merge these two columns and I apply a filter on this row, do you see the filter only gets applied on the merge cell, right? And by default, it will show me values from the first column itself, first column of the merge cell itself, because the value, when you merge two cells, the value is stored in the first column. So if I do equal to I1, I1 is going to be blank, but if I do equal to H1, H1 is going to have the value, right? So there is an option in Excel called center across selection that not a lot of people are aware of. So what we've done is we've created an add-in for that. So if I just select two cells, and if I go to the add-in and I click on center across selection, it is not working for some reason. No worries. I'll just show you using where the option is available. So under alignment, you have the option to center across selection. Under alignment, when you press Control 1, you open the format cells dialog box. And under alignment, you have the option to center across selection. And when I do that and I press OK, right now the cells appear to be merged. H1 and I1 appear to be merged. Let me just change the color. Right. So H1 and I1 appear to be merged, but they are two separate cells. So if I apply a filter again, although visibly they look like they are merged, but they are not merged. It is just that the text has been centered across the selection of the two cells that I had selected. So now in this case, when I apply a filter, I will be able to manually select each of the columns. 1 second, I'll just download it. Just a second. I'll just check my WhatsApp and I'll download the latest one. So we create these add-ins again, depending on the experience that we have with clients. Typically, people don't come and ask us for a specific add-in, right? For example, right now that we showed you the add-in, you might be able to think of many more such use cases. And that is the whole point, to get the conversation started around, workflow automation, reducing errors, reducing TAT. Just a second. I'll just download it and just give me a second, everyone. I have just downloaded the latest add-in. Avi sir, I would just need one help. What is the location where I have to save this in?
Just open your Excel file.
1 second. I'll present my screen. Yeah.
Go to File, Save As.
1 second.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm in File and
No,
Save
just
As.
share your screen also.
Actually, 1 second. Okay. File and Save As.
Change the file extension to XLAM.
Browse and from here itself. Excel
Just
add-in
go
one?
down.
Yeah, Excel
That
add-in.
one. And
Correct.
copy the folder path from the top.
Yeah, I'll just do that. Copy it and I'll save the add-in here, right?
Correct.
1 second. Just do that right now. Everyone just need 1 more minute. We're almost done. Okay, I've saved it there, sir.
Yeah, now you go to Developer,
Developer,
go to Excel add-ins.
Excel add-ins, and
Hmm.
2024. Perfect.
Correct.
Thank you.
You will have to unblock it first.
So Microsoft now by default has disabled all add-ins on any of an Excel file that you work on, right? So by default in Excel, add-ins, any add-in that you download, install is going to be blocked by Microsoft by default because of security reasons, right? Typically in organizations, because it can cause a lot of issues in terms of data security and privacy. The add-ins are blocked, so you have to come and unblock them once. I'll just do that and okay. And hopefully now I should be able to access the add-in, Excel add-ins 2024 and okay. Just check my ribbon if the add-in has been added.
Have you shown this?
Yeah, yes, this one.
First one.
Right. So these are the add-ins that we have created, right? So for example, if I click on table of contents, this will create a table of contents sheet for me. Is it because this other add-in is open that it is not working?
No, it will work. Just go to a new file once. Try again.
So if I click on table of contents, no, it's not working. I think it's because of the other add-in is open. Maybe.
Not really. Okay, there must be some reason. Anyway, doesn't matter. But this is
Just
how
to
the
give
add-in
everyone,
is.
yeah, this is just to give everyone an overview that we've created multiple add-ins for navigation formulas. For example, if you have to apply if error on, let's say, 100 rows, you would have to do it manually, right? There is no other way for you to do it once you've already written a formula. So when you click on the add if error button after selecting the rows where you want to apply if error, it will automatically add if error depending on 100 rows, 1000 rows, or 1 lakh rows, right? Then we have one more for showing and hiding formulas. Again, like Ganesh was mentioning, sometimes the idea of an add-in is rather than or apart from adding newer features, just display or consolidate the features that are there in different Excel tabs in a single view, right? Again, you have a add-in that will allow you to highlight errors. Now, all of these have been created using VBA. All of these have been created using VBA. So, for example, there is an add-in that will allow you to, that Havish sir has created, that will allow you to change text to numbers or number to text, again, which is not possible by default inside of Excel. Great. I'll just check the chat. We've used JavaScript. Right. So sir has also put the VBA playlist YouTube link in the chat. So in case anyone of you is interested on how you can go about creating these add-ins, or you can go about creating more automations in Excel, you can check out the VBA playlist that sir has put in the chat. Right. Anyone has any questions? Happy to take them. Or else I think we've shown everything that we wanted to show you. The add-ins for some reason did not work. Maybe we'll have a separate session just to show the add-ins that we've already created. Right. And happy that all of you joined and stayed with us throughout the hour. Right. Would appreciate if you can share your feedback later on as well over email or WhatsApp, or if you have my numbers as well. Right. So you can share any feedback or any inputs that you have in terms of the add-in or in terms of adding more features. Right. Thank you everyone for joining in.
Thanks, Tala. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll just stop the recording.